Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenny Hughes. I am the Director of K-12 Partnerships here at MSJC. And we're so excited to welcome you to our 2023 Virtual K-12 Summit. Today is all about courageous conversations. We're really looking to change that narrative surrounding community college and how we at Mount San Jacinto College can assist your current student population. We have some fun and exciting things lined up for you. So with that, I just want to kind of give you a peek, and this is just a sneak peek of our agenda today and how it will work. We're starting off right now with some welcome introductions. We have an amazing keynote speaker lined up for you. You all are going to be so thrilled to listen to our keynote. From there, we will take a short break, and then we'll go into 3 separate breakout sessions. Those breakout sessions will have an opportunity for 3 different presentations to choose from. I know that you're all going to want to see every single one of them, so no worries. We actually are recording them all. So pick the one that's your favorite, and then just know that the 2 that you cannot attend, you'll be able to see via recording. So a little bit of housekeeping. Angela's going to be putting in a link to our virtual program. So it's really important that you save this link, have it open on your computer, because this is how you're going to access your breakout sessions. If at any time you forget the link, this is our main Zoom room that we're in right now. So feel free to come back to this main Zoom room and even during the presentation time, and somebody will be sitting in here and able to assist you to get to that link. It is a bit.ly link. Each breakout room has its own individual Zoom room link, and it also has a passcode. So make sure that you're copying and pasting that passcode in. We don't want any Zoom bombers in this today. And then the main Zoom room that we're currently in, we're going to be here till approximately 10:15. As I stated, somebody will be in this room a majority of the time in case you need help. And then we will come back here after our 3rd presentation for some closing remarks and some further information. So we do have Joyce Johnson, our Vice President of Career Education, who was supposed to do a welcome today. I'm not quite sure. She was running late from a meeting. Is Joyce on the line?
I'm here.
She's here. Wonderful. So I'm going to just give her a moment to welcome you all to this wonderful presentation and event we have going today.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Jenny. And my apologies for running late. I just decided to pull over in my car and just make this my priority. So I just want to say it's so great to see you all. And I truly, on behalf of our district, appreciate your presence here. I want to give a big shout out to Jenny and her team for all the great work that she has done in the planning. And for you all to know that you have a very, very filled, exciting, informative, engaging day ahead of you. So with that, I just say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing the space to be here and to partake in this. So thank you, Jenny. And I will say, have a great rest of your day because you're in for a big treat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being safe with that. I'm glad you pulled over. So with that, I want to move forward and ask real quick if anybody has any questions before we jump right into our amazing keynote. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions. I know it's early. They'll come later. Okay. So with that, I'm going to move forward and introduce our keynote. Sam Pierstorff is a professor of English and poetry at Modesto Junior College. He received his Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from CSU Long Beach and went on to become the youngest poet laureate ever appointed to the state of California when he was selected to the position in 2004 by the city of Modesto, where he currently teaches English at Modesto Junior College. In 2019, the college honored him with the Purdy Award for Teaching Excellence. He is also the creator of the Ill List, California's most prestigious annual poetry slam competition. As a performer, he won UC Merced's Grand Slam Championship in 2013 and the Rogue Festival Poetry Slam in 2014. And he has published more than 200 poems. His autobiographical story about growing up Muslim in America was selected as the opening piece in the anthology Salam Love, Beacon Press. And he was subsequently invited to Harvard University to read his work and was later invited to do a TEDx talk. He is the author of Growing Up in Someone Else's Shoes, published by World Parade Books in 2010, And most recently, he co-edited More Than Soil, More Than Sky, The Modesto Poets, which launched to #1 on Amazon's poetry bestseller list upon its release. And most ridiculously, he's a 2-time contestant on NBC's American Ninja Warrior, certifying him as the world's first ninja poet. He can be found on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Ninja Poet. So with that, a huge welcome. Unmute yourself if you can and clap for our keynote, our amazing keynote, Mr. Sam Pierstorff. Thank you so much for being here.
All the muted Zoom applause. I feel the love. It's fantastic. I'm excited to be here. Every time someone reads my bio, it's like, I can't even believe it. And, you know, you don't hold on to any of those things. Just keep moving past them. But I do want to say that I went to junior college, so this is right in my wheelhouse. So what I want to talk about today is the importance of community colleges. I'm going to say some things that you guys already know, but I hope I also say some things that you hadn't considered. My goal today is to convince you that community colleges should be the first choice and not the last choice. So let's get into it. Angela, I just share my screen here, I'm guessing. Oh,
yeah, let me see if I have to let you. You know,
right now. Horrifying.
I think it should let you.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay. So anyway, I'm Sam Pierstorff. I've been teaching at MJC, and I like that you're MSJC. Take out the S, and then it's MJC, and that's us. George Lucas is our most famous graduate. We always like to say that Star Wars, we are the galaxy far, far away. We cut our film program. It's been devastating ever since. I'm not a huge fan of some of the politics and administration, but I think I can speak for all faculty and staff. The students matter the most, and when we concentrate on that, we're successful. This is a picture of our science center. I want to start by talking about the stigma related to community colleges, and I want to start with this little TikTok that I made with the question at the bottom. So one question always comes up is like, what causes this stigma associated with a junior college? And forgive me if I say junior college, I know we dropped junior, but MJC hasn't. We have a very powerful alumni, believe it or not. George Lucas is not one of those. He does not give us any money. We've been trying for years, but we have this farming ag alumni. Every time we've tried to change the name, they're like, nope, MJC for life. So we're stuck with it. I don't mind, but the stigma is still attached, right? One is that it is a lower cost, so therefore a lower value. We have like just a couture culture. So we'll talk about that. But another place where I think we're stigmatized is in the media, right? Particularly in film. So I want to just show this as kind of a prompt to start our conversation. Anybody seen Good Will Hunting? I'm assuming you have. Okay, good. Here's a little piece. Oops. I touched my mouse and it's a Mac and everything. Now, here we go.
I've been thinking a lot about the difference between community colleges and universities and where the stigma comes from that has attached itself to community colleges as these inferior institutions. And I think movies is one place. So tell me what you think about this contrast in representations of higher education in the US of A.
Steven? I also put an advanced Fourier system on the main hallway chalkboard. I'm hoping that one of you might prove it by the end of the semester. And the person to do so will not only be in my good graces, but also go on to fame and fortune by having their accomplishment recorded and the name printed, the auspicious MIT Tech. Former winners include Nobel laureates, Fields Medal winners, renowned astrophysicists, and lowly MIT professors. Well, that's all. If you have any questions, I'm sure that Tom has the answers.
Trust, very important in a relationship. It's also very important in a clinical situation. Why is trust the most important thing in making a breakthrough with a client? Maureen, stop their oral fixation for a moment and join us. Vinny.
Because trust is life.
Very deep. Thank you.
Now you see, how does that movie end? Remember, you know that ultimately Robin Williams, the teacher, the real teacher with the big heart, saves Matt Damon's character, Will Touchable. So I think ultimately this movie indirectly proves the point that community college professors are way better than you off.
All right. So I'm gonna make some bold statements, and I'm happy to be challenged in the comments. Feel free at any time to question or comment. But I'm going to be bold and say that I think it's a mistake to go to university right out of high school, particularly for middle-class students. If you are a student or you are advising a student, and that student is getting a full ride scholarship, or that student is part of a program where they're getting their tuition, room and board, whatever paid for, great, go to university. But if you are encouraging students to go to university for a 4-year degree and they don't have any loans, their financial aid packet is dismal, and you're suggesting, well, just take out debt, as I did. It's called good debt, right? It's debt that will lead to a great job in the future, and you'll be fine. And that's not a great ROI. We're learning that. There's been a massive cultural shift. I think quarantine, excuse me, let me.
I've been thinking a lot about.
There's been a huge cultural shift, I think, and quarantine and COVID really has exacerbated this. And I don't want to make a political point, but I think it's pretty obvious that folks on the right are very anti-university for a lot of reasons, and that's fine. And they have, I think, in a lot of ways made college feel irrelevant. But the cost of college itself and the ROI on college is broken. As you see in this, the second point down, the ROI of college is broken. Americans know it. More than half of adults don't think the economic benefits of a college degree outweigh the cost. There is a massive cultural shift happening. The conversations are changing. And I think community college is the thing that's going to fix a lot of higher education, because even the right agrees. When I get in the Twitter comments and the TikTok comments and people say college is too expensive, they just have this very big stereotype about what college is. No one talks about community college, at least not enough. Look at what Forbes said at the top left here. It says Forbes Advisor right there. Under the heading alternatives to college is community college. Community college is not an alternative to college. Community college is college. It's the first 2 years. I think university culture is in trouble. I think people are freaking out about the costs. The debt is an economic drag. We'll talk about some of those things when I get into the cost. But in the bottom right-hand corner, the data is indisputable. We need to stop telling high school students that going into debt to earn a bachelor's degree is the only pathway to the middle class and above. You'll notice some of those. I just started Googling and looking. I've been watching and reading the news for quite a while about universities, colleges, and the decline in attendance and whatnot. And you'll see that Gen Zers, our next gen, they are not seeing college as the only viable pathway and option. They are recognizing that if I get into $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 of debt, my life is going backwards, and I'm living with my parents, and I can't buy a car, and I can't buy a house, etc. So let's get into what I call the facts about community college. And F.A.C.S, I spelled purposely wrong, by the way, faculty, alumni, cost, and the students. So I want to talk about faculty first, just because it goes in order, facts, right? What people don't understand about a university, and if we're in a room, I'd ask who went straight to university, who went straight to a community college. I went straight to a community college. I was among the many students who didn't quite know what they were doing, and I'll tell that story a little bit later. But it wasn't until I transferred that I realized what a lot of students don't realize, and what I think a lot of parents don't realize, is how many faculty are not full-fledged professors with MAs or PhDs at the university. Like, you're paying $25,000 a year for your child to be taught by a 21, 22-year-old grad student who's in the middle of finishing their degree and has not ever taught before. That's who you're paying to teach your child. How do I know that? Because I was that person. I was that graduate assistant, and then I was a TA in a TMAC program. My entire class, we had about 15 who, I don't know if anybody else has ever been a part of something like that, but if you're in a graduate school program, you can teach as part of your financial aid package, right? So who are our students? Our students are incoming freshmen and sophomores. So the same class I teach now, 23 years later, is the same class I taught when I was 21, just getting started, barely knowing what I was doing. I was 20, I was older than some of the students, right? I had no classroom control. I wasn't sure what I was doing. Every week I was meeting with my professor to talk about that class. And so truly, for the first couple of years, we are often asking people to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for an inferior education. And I'm gonna say that your freshman and sophomore years at a university, other than the great football games and the clout of telling everybody you went to Princeton or Harvard or Berkeley, other than that, it's not a superior education. I know that for a couple reasons. One, particularly, we have all heard, and I have for 23 years, we've all heard students who have transferred, who have come back, and then have told us over and over, my community college professors were the best. I got to know them. Right? I went to their office hours. I was able to be mentored and guided by them. You don't get as much of that. Now you can. I'm not saying you don't at other universities. You do, but you don't get that till your senior year, your junior year. And then when you're in grad school, then you really get it. All these pictures here, I started Googling and looking for pictures. I'm like, you know what? I have so many pictures. Let me just use my classes. So I have students, you know, in the center there where I'm between two women, you know, she was an interpreter on my left, and then the student with holding laptop was deaf. And then that kid down there at the bottom, every single month, I had to keep it monthly because my forearm was burning out. He wanted to arm wrestle after class, right? And I'm not saying everybody should do that. I have a note there, arm wrestling is not required. But there's a certain interactivity, there's a certain closeness and intimacy with the kind of students that we get at community college. And if you have an open-hearted faculty member, it's just wonderful. At CSUs and UCs, you have this multiple tier system, lecturers, teaching assistants, graduate students. You won't get a full professor until maybe your senior year, your junior year, or every once in a while, someone like Robert Haas at Berkeley, who was a poet laureate of the United States, you know, he'll do the College of Service and teach a lowly freshman English class, but largely those faculty who are elite, they're reserved for the grad students. Anecdotally, one of the ways in which I encourage students to understand how great it is that they made this choice is I tell them these things. I literally talk about these things and I share my story and they share their stories. And then the horror stories at universities. And if we were in a bigger room, I'd ask you for some of those questions. If you have anything to drop in the chat or questions, go for it. But every time I post something on Facebook about community colleges, here come the comments. Community college changed my life. If it weren't for a community college, I wouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. So I think we understand that about community colleges. But what I want to hammer home is when you're talking to parents, when you're talking to students, help them understand that the faculty that they get in those first 2 years are not always qualified professors. They are graduate students, and your children are their guinea pigs. What? I said it. Moving on. Any questions? I feel like I should answer questions. Hold on. Sorry. Oops. Zoom is weird. It's just like talking to my screen. But I'm going to assume if there are questions, Angela, you can stop me. I'm a teacher, so at any time, if there's a question, just Angela, feel free. If it's
I'll just interject. Yeah.
If it's a juicy one, interject. Yes, ma'am. All right, this is an easy one. And of course, all universities can make their list and make bigger lists, but I find this very helpful. This is one of my opening days. You know, first day, freshmen just came in and they're all sitting in their class like, what did I come here for? You know, that stigma even attaches to the young student's heart. They just go, ah. And then I walk in and I put these slides up, right? And I talk about Tom Hanks. I will, it's in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll just see the screenshot, and I'm gonna send the PDF to Angela and she could disseminate it. But Tom Hanks wrote a really good article about attending Skyline, or was it Chabot? Sorry, he went to Skyline High School, Chabot College. I mean, the great Tom Hanks, right? He wanders into Chabot, can't get into any other school, doesn't know what he's doing, and then ends up in a speech class, meets his wife, ends up going to Sac State, majoring in theater, and the rest is history. But he writes a nice piece about how going to a community college allowed him to do that, right? Without the pressure and the pathway and the focus and the hundreds of thousands of dollars he didn't have, he went to community college, he dabbled in a few classes, and then he found his purpose, his pursuit. And we see that a lot. So here is just a list of people that sort of stand out to me that students can get excited about. Like, they have to know that going to community college is not a letdown. It is a stepping stone. And when you look at the list of amazing people, you'll realize that. I particularly like on this list folks like Amy Tan and Schwarzenegger, because what they represent are the second language students who had to start at a community college because they just weren't quite ready yet for university. But that is the thing that gave them the big start. I love Schwarzenegger. If you ever Google him and read about his community college experience, his language, his speech, it wasn't great, right? That's where he sort of cut his teeth on learning to act and learning to speak more clearly. And then, of course, he became Conan the Barbarian. I can't tell, obviously, because we're on Zoom, but I'm always curious to know how many folks started at a community college, because although we focus on all these great elite alumni, there are hundreds of thousands of extraordinary people, you know, in politics who become lawyers. Because I've been there 23 years, one of the best things for me is when a former student comes back and says, "Hey, I'm a lawyer now. I got my first lawyer about 3 years ago." She came through and she's like, "I can't believe junior college works." The nurses, the teachers, the lawyers, like, it's not just becoming George Lucas or Aaron Rodgers or Steve Jobs. That's elite, that's great. But how many amazing people and leaders, you know, on the ground floor and in politics and wherever else are just crushing it, and it was their junior college education. So make sure you share your stories too. And I think that's extremely helpful. Okay. This is the big one and the most obvious one that we always talk about, right? The costs of higher education. Look at I pulled all these political cartoons out from the newspapers because I was just trying to do, like, what are people saying about college? Look at this extraordinary, I don't know how many of you have a child who's maybe off to college. I have 3 children. 2 of them are going to the community college, my community college. One is only 14, but no matter what his mother tells him about, "Oh, take the UC, take the CSU, take the, you know, AP, you're going to go to this place or that," he said, "Mom, why would I do that? I'm going to MJC. Mom, I would go to," he's convinced. There's nothing, he's such a cost-minded, rational kid that no matter what his mom says about scholarships and going to Stanford, he's like, "Nope, MJC." It doesn't make any sense not to go to MJC. My oldest is going to MJC. My youngest is the one, my daughter in the middle, my wonderful, stubborn daughter, must, like many of your children, I'm sure, must get out of here. Cannot possibly conceive of the idea of going to a local community college. That, I think, is the biggest challenge. It's not about how great community college is. It's getting out of the high school mindset, right? Where I need a Gucci bag to look cool. Ergo, I need to go to Berkeley to be cool. Like, I need the clout of a great basketball team, a great football team. That's really what we're fighting against, right? We're fighting against that stigma, that social stigma that young people have around going to a JC. My daughter's stuck with it. You know, she's really stuck on this idea of going to a CSU. Fine. We are stuck on the idea that it's going to cost $25,000 a year times 4 years, $100,000. We are middle class as hell. Where am I going to get $100,000 extra dollars, right? She's going to go into a little bit of debt. We're going to help as much as possible. But the whole time we're paying these bills, I'm just going, why are we doing this? And anyway, I feel like a hypocrite. I told my daughter, I'm like, I'm going to go tell about JCs, and you're going to Humboldt. She's going to Humboldt, which I feel like it's the JCs of CSUs because it's so small and intimate. So that's the way I rationalize it. It's only 6,000 students. There's like 15 to 16 per class. It's a really great CSU, but look at the cost breakdown. This is something you have to show parents. You have to keep them aware. $1,200 for tuition at a semester at a a year at a community college, minus books and whatnot. But a lot of folks, I don't know how your school's doing, but MJC, and I think across the state, many of us are moving to a zero textbook cost program, right? Anybody doing that? I'm looking at the chat. Some head nods. So, what's that?
MSJC starting to go towards that too.
Yeah, call us. We've got a woman named Shirley Miranda. She is gangbusters. She is all over this. You get a T-shirt, you get a little stamp in the schedule of classes. Students will migrate toward those classes because they're free. These days, with all the PDFs that are available and this deep archives of free material, some of which is free because it's old, some of it's new and still very much free. You can do so much at a community college without, or at least as a faculty member, without any textbooks. I don't have a textbook anymore. I have a PDF and a whole bunch of articles. So 1246, and then half of those folks, as you know, are on fee waivers and government bogs and all these things. So it's like 50% of students are attending for free. Cal State Long Beach, or excuse me, I said that because that's where I went. Cal State University 6,884 per year, and then universities popped to 13,752, and that's average. Some are a little bit higher. And I had no idea. I mean, I knew privates were expensive, and I double and triple checked. This is insane. $50,000 to $70,000 a year. And look, I'm not trying to, be mean to the liberal arts, but like, I'm a teacher, and if I spent 70 grand a year to become a teacher, are you kidding me? It would take 100 years to pay off that debt. And even those who become doctors and lawyers, the amount that they're paying for malpractice insurance plus their student debts, they might be making $300,000 or $400,000 a year. But once you factor in their debt and their bills, they're just as broke as anyone. And I think many of you who are older, I tell this to students, and they don't believe me, but the more you make, the more you spend, and everybody's broke at the end of the month. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a nurse, a garbage man, like everybody is broke at the end of the month because our income and our spending just sort of align. We live in a very consumer-driven culture. So when you can sort of figure out more cost-effective ways of saving money, it just makes sense. But I want to kind of read a few of these jokes down here because they're so important. And, like poetry, nothing really captures, I think, a point better than a really good joke. So instead of repaying my student loan, this guy in the far bottom left says, I'm returning my diploma. It didn't work. And this is part of frustration that people are recognizing about college. They pick a major, they're excited about anthropology or English or whatever, and then the joke is they work at Starbucks, they work at Costco, right? They did not end up doing the thing that they studied, which is not a big deal. It's really about the skills, not so much the actual major. That guy with the starting blocks affects me. Like, it hits me in the feels. Those giant cinder blocks for shoes is exactly how it feels when you're 22 or 23 and you're $50,000 or $70,000 in debt, right? You've got your degree and then you get your first job and maybe it pays 60 or 70,000, right? How long will it take you to pay that off? Some suggest that it costs over $500,000 over the course of a lifetime for your BA. By the time you pay off the debt and the interest over that time. Not to mention how hamstrung, what's that word? Your hands are tied behind your back. You cannot buy a house, a car. You cannot sort of contribute to the economy because you're just moving check to check trying to pay these bills. I love the one where they're climbing the backs. Grade school, free. High school, free. College, the bag gets heavier. And then after college, that's it. You're just carrying that debt. And then when this is going to sound slightly controversial, but I hope you'll support me on this. If I were running for president, if I wanted to get in the political game, if you lean left, you want to cancel student debt. If you lean right, you don't want to cancel student debt, right? I don't think it's that binary. I'm right in the middle. I think people who went to universities and are paying $100,000 a year to go to Stanford, I don't think we should pay their debt. I think they made a bad choice. I think they should have started a community college. They could cut their debt in half. And then those are the debts I might consider paying. But if you make a choice, a private university or even a public university right out of the gates with no financial aid, no scholarships, that's a choice you made that may not have been a great one. I don't think we should help you pay that back. Is that controversial? Maybe not. Who knows? I can't tell. I think people are responsible for the choices they make. And I'm at a point where I can say, you made a choice that cost way too much. There were many alternatives, but you wanted the Mercedes instead of the Toyota. So you're going to pay that bill. That's your lease now. If you'd taken the Toyota, maybe we can help you with some costs because that was a wiser decision. All right. Just take in the slides. This one gets me in the feels. There's nothing more exciting than the students at a community college. I will tell you, having taught at a CSU Long Beach and a UC Irvine before I came to MJC. CSU and UC students, and I say this, stereotypically, but there's a lot of sameness. And what I mean by that is when I stand in front of a Cal State Long Beach classroom, out of the 30 students, they're all 18, 19, 20. They're all within a 2 or 3 year age range. Hardly any have been in the military. None of them have been in prison, right? We will have some diversity among those, but very few at freshman and sophomore are parents, right? That's the kind of diversity that I value so much at a community college that is different than a university. That's one reason I love teaching there, but I think the education for the student that comes with sitting in a class that is so diverse, that see that guy at the top with a wheelchair? Oh, you can see me kind of lying on the floor next to him. That's a great picture. That guy was in Iraq, 2 tours. He was blown out of a Humvee. He lost half his platoon. I mean, I get choked up. Sorry. Guys had it rough. But he was able, that was a poetry class. So he was able to share those stories, tell those stories. How do you think the impact of that guy sharing his stories affected the rest of the students, right? So you come in, we don't have to have a debate about politics and and wars and whether or not we should be. He can just raise his hand and tell his story, and then we have a whole other perspective. That guy down there under the "We Are Strong" banner, I did a run, a 48-mile run. I don't know if anybody follows David Goggins. He's crazy, but you run 4 hours. Excuse me. You run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And you just go all night, 8 a.m., noon, and then midnight, 4 a.m., just on and on. It's crazy. So I decided I would run that, and then I would, raise money for scholarships. So I literally pull up at 8 a.m. to my first run at MJC. I was going to go around. If you go around our campus 4 times, it's a mile. This kid shows up, Daniel Cornejo. Daniel Cornejo is a first-generation student. He just decided to come run because he saw that I was running. He saw it on Facebook or whatever. And I said, "Oh, hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Hey, you were my teacher 10 years ago. 10 years? No, 6 years ago. 6 years ago. He'd transferred. He came back to do this run. He ran all 48 miles. And it was great because every time we did a run, we started with nobody watching, and then 2 people, and then 10 people, and then 20 people. And it was all his family. His family just started coming and growing and growing. And because of him, it turned into quite of an event that the newspapers came down and took pictures and whatnot. But he wanted to come back to MJC. He knew we were raising money. And so he wanted to just run this run to pay us back. The level of diversity and interest and commitment is just so huge for some of these people. They came in as first-gen students. They met a couple teachers, and their lives were just guided, and they're forever grateful, right? that's beautiful. I just don't think you get as much of that in a CSU or UC or a private, where the students, they go in there, they're committed, right? They did not have the kind of upbringing, first generation, no one went to college. They didn't have as much of that. Some did. Down here at the bottom, one of my favorite pictures of all time. Do you see the woman who's feeding her baby? I know that there's probably policies against this, 100%. You know, our HR department does not want kids in the classroom, but you know, I'm a bit of a renegade. And when a baby that cute and a mom like that, she called and said, my baby canceled, I can't come to take the quiz. And I said, you bring that baby. You bring that baby to class and we'll figure it out. Don't worry. And then I just caught that picture, and I just think it's the best symbolic sort of picture of the kind of working mother, the kind of mission that community colleges are on, which is to educate everybody from all walks of life. And then, of course, there's a beautiful graduation picture where it all pays off. There's a book listed there, David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm going to also include a PDF of that. I would encourage you to read the Caroline Sachs chapter. That's a pseudonym for a young woman who was torn between where to go to school. She has a 4.6. She's brilliant. She ends up going to Brown University. And she flops. She gets, you know, she gets a B- in like organic chemistry, and that's the end of her world, because she was at the top of her game in high school, and then she went to a university where everybody's at the top of their game. She gets a B. It's devastating for her. She quits organic chemistry. She ends up transferring to another university. But he brings up that article, that experience, to talk about scientifically with all kinds of wonderful data that actually going to a smaller school, being a big fish in a small pond, is better for the student and for their education than being a small fish in a massive academic pond like Brown University or Harvard or wherever. And then he goes on to say that if you were smart as an employer who is trying to hire, go to the best students from mediocre schools were almost always better than the good students from the very best schools, right? That's a fact, according to Forbes. And I think a lot of those folks who are in counseling or teachers at community college, you've heard this and it's true. So why isn't it out there more? Students who transfer from a community college, they do better at the CSUs and the UCs. They do better at privates. Dozens of studies show that students transferring from a community college outperform their university counterparts. That's one of my favorite statements, right? Our junior college students go to universities and crush it. It's easier to get in as a junior than it is as a freshman, right? I think we all know that. That's a selling point to parents. If your kids can't get into Harvard, Berkeley, Yale, Stanford, wherever they want to go, whatever local Cal State or university they want to go, if they can't get in, that's fine. You'll get in. Just give it 2 years, save a ton of money, stay home, stay close, and then transfer. And then as a junior and a senior, you'll still get your Berkeley certificate of graduation. You'll still walk the walk. You'll still be a Berkeley grad. You will have saved a ton of money. So it's not that you don't go to university. You just start at a JC and then transfer. It's basic and you'll do better. That is so key. I transferred as a junior. I think everybody in here will agree that when you are 18, wide-eyed and curious and at college for the first time, that can be exciting and it could be a disaster. I taught at Cal State Long Beach, but my job, besides the 1 or 2 classes I taught, was in the University Outreach and School Relations Department. So we were kind of a transfer center a little bit, and we would do a transcript evaluation. And over and over and over, it was such a funny pattern that I kept recognizing. Students would, remember, I'm at a university, so students would come with their transcripts, and their transcripts would say over and over, San Diego State or Chico State, and then it would say community college, and then it would say now they're trying to get into university, right? So they went to a CSU, they blew it, then they finished at a community college, and now they're transferring again as more mature, more aware, more experienced adults, right? So what happens inevitably, a student goes off to college, they were doing great in high school, and then they party, they drink, they're lonely, they're depressed, their friends aren't around, all the things that push them out of their local area, they become resentful and sad and depressed. And then they start partying and drinking and they can't handle the maturity. And some of them, they don't know what they're majoring in. They're just lost, right? Again, this is generalization. It's not true for everybody. Some are extraordinarily focused, but so many aren't. Anecdotally, there's all kinds of proof. And it's important to help students and parents understand that your child will transfer eventually, but if they go as freshmen, how mature is your child? Right? Do they have the soft skills, right? We focus a lot on these hard skills and science and math, but like, do they know how to handle their anxiety, their stress, their depression? When 4 teachers, 4 classes, 4 midterms, 4 essays, can you handle a load like that? I think at JCs, that's your basic training. That's 2 years of figuring out what it means to be a student, how to study, right? How to manage your time. All of those soft skills are essential, and you only get them by being, I should say, you get them by being a student at a junior college. I spend more time teaching my students how to learn than telling them where the periods and commas go and what the thesis is in an essay, right? I'm helping them understand how to manage their time, right? I have lots of tips and tricks for that. That's the initial start of a junior college. Like, here is how we study. Here is how we learn. The above my head in the program where we're graduating, it says, how can community college faculty create empathy and positive energy, etc. I am not saying that all faculty have the kind of engagement and love and big hearts for students that I do and many of my colleagues do. I think the reality is a lot of people in general, high school, junior high, college, and beyond, there's a lot of teachers that shouldn't be teachers anymore. There's a lot of teachers that are just burned out jerks. Let's just be honest, at all levels. Those people need to be weeded out. But in general, at a community college, our focus as faculty is to teach. This is another thing you should communicate to parents and students. I am a teacher. I'm a full professor. I've been doing it 20 years. I have my master's degree, and everybody on campus has either an MA or a PhD. Our primary focus is to teach your students how to learn, right? That's different than at a university where a lot of the pressures, right? We say publish or perish, right? You're focused on a lot of research. You're focused on a lot of activities in order to get tenure. You're focused on a ton of activities outside of the classroom in order to achieve tenure. And if you don't have the publications, the research, the awards, you may not get tenure. At a junior college, you have 4 years of evaluations every semester where the dean and multiple faculty are coming to your class. Our only focus is, are you teaching these students well? That's it. If you have publications, as I do, none of that stuff matters. I mean, it's fun. It's nice. You're in the paper once in a while and people, your Facebook following grows or whatever, but it does not matter in the classroom or for tenure. So the emphasis at a community college is on teaching, the emphasis to get these students to the next level. One of the ways that I try to encourage engagement, I don't know how many faculty in the room, but this is one of my favorite assignments. I feel like the first couple weeks of class really has to be building rapport, helping students understand that they made the right choice, and then giving them some of the study skills. But first, let's talk about the challenges. I feel pretty strongly, and I say this to students all the time, that college is not that hard. It is all of the things in life that prevent college from being easy. It's all the other stuff. It is sick parents, it's having a child, it is work problems, it is all of those things that make college hard. So I want to know that. I want them to know that they're more than just students. And so I ask them to write me a letter of introduction. I write them a letter. Everybody gets the same letter. Just tells a little bit about my life growing up. I was not a first-gen college student, but I was the first student I was the first kid in my family to get a master's degree. But my parents were divorced. We grew up in poverty. I grew up in thrift store clothes. I had a decent life, comparatively speaking, but I had my challenges. And so I share that. And once you open that door, then the students, man, it's very difficult for them to write about the pros and cons of social media or whatever. But when I ask students about their lives, all of a sudden they have, one student said, I wrote 10 pages, is that okay? And I know this assignment is less about me and more about them being able to communicate all that's in their heart. Nobody asks people, how are you feeling? Write about it. Let's talk about it. That's a hard position to be in for a lot of people, but I find so much value. And some of these blurbs come right out of their essays, right? I learned my students are homeless. I learned that their parents have been hauled off to prison. I learned that they just got out of prison, right? There's all kinds of extraordinary stories embedded within these students that we have to sort of extract. And I think that's especially important because as we move into this world of Chat GPT, English teachers all over the country are like, what are we going to do? Like the calculator robbed math of a lot of skills. English is going to change fundamentally. And I think one of the actual things that we need to do as English professors is to encourage a little more personal and creative writing, because that's something they can't Chat GPT, and that's something that benefits them. So I'm trying to find these hybrid essays where, you know, there's some academic stuff that I'm sure they're going to cheat and use Chat GPT, but I'm requiring them to connect to their own personal lives so they can see the relationship and how this works and be much more personal. And then I just want to say at the bottom here, this prison to college halls, I feel blessed by how many students have come from literally prison into my class, to the point where some students, they don't even know how to use a computer. And I have to start from scratch, like turn it on. Here's how you create an email, you know? And I don't mind doing that because they're trying so hard. And that's the kind of student you get at a community college. And then you'll see Gary down there with his son, single dad, was in prison for about 5 years, came out, ended up at JC, got the encouragement, transferred, ends up with almost a 4.0. And I see him around town now. I can't remember where he works. He might be a social worker now. But anyway, he's a great college success story. He's not part of my alumni sheet, but he's definitely someone I bring up. So I think that concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I just feel so strongly that community colleges, especially now in our culture, as universities are on the decline in terms of people's love and understanding the value of it, we have an opportunity here to really fill that gap, to help with trades, to help students transfer, and to be the kind of encouraging place that I know we can be. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions? You're so energetic. I feel like I don't even need a second cup of coffee. This is fantastic.
Woo!
And a lot of thank yous. Any questions? Sam's been doing this for quite a while. He's got some really great opportunities for students, some fun he does. If anybody wants any tips or tricks or ideas.
I'm reading these comments. It's so important to tell the stories. A lot of people are talking about saving money, 2 years of loans instead of 4. I graduated from Cal State. I was fortunate back then, things were cheaper. I only owed about $11,000. That was significantly less than the average, which is about $30,000. I don't think young people quite understand what debt can do to your future life. And we as older people who have had those experiences, help them understand the ROI.
So we do have one question. Hope, did you want to unmute and ask a question?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. I was going to type it in the chat, but I think I don't type fast enough and I have too many errors. So thank you. So I'm a high school counselor at Paloma Valley High in the Paris Union High School District. And I had mentioned I graduated from MSJC as well. My niece is there currently. She's going to be transferring to UC Riverside. So I think, with just working with students for so many years, I think that community college is a great place for a lot of our students to start, especially now that I'm older. The ROI and the financial aid component, I think, it's so important. But one thing that my concern with some of our students that are going to the community college is that I am finding that sometimes students are going there if they're undecided, or sometimes students are applying, last minute because they do receive their financial aid award and then they find out, that they can't cover their gap, or the parent can't receive the Parent Plus loan. And so one thing is that some of our students, like there's a large like disconnect sometimes between that getting them from high school to the community college, so where sometimes like with the Cal States and the UCs, once the students admit that intent to register, it's almost like a different process. And I think that's because of the housing. The students are actually on campus, so they can grab those students and actually, having them attend class, where that component is missing at the community college because they're not living on campus. They're not, showing up. So I see a big disconnect there, where sometimes we have the students applying, they do the orientation, they get through all the steps of matriculation, but then they're not showing up to community college. So
Yeah.
that's like my big concern.
Yeah. And part of that may, part of that is hugely the student, him or herself, especially if they're first generation. They don't have, I watch my wife, and I love her, and she's a fantastic mom, but she definitely helps very much our students send the emails, check the websites, find the scholarships. I mean, right. So it takes a tremendous amount of parental involvement. A lot of students don't have. I think it's incumbent upon the JCs to go to these schools and do a better job of marketing the college, as instead of a passive approach, like we're here, they're going to check in. I think we need to be more active and do presentations like this at JCs and college nights, right? Helping parents understand that disconnect and how to get in and how to matriculate and what those steps are. So a lot of that, I think, falls upon the college itself to really come up with the protocols, the plan, the marketing to get into those high schools and to connect with those students. And to literally, we have, I don't know if you have, with some grant money from the F.A.C.S, particularly during COVID, we have like student support staff now, or no, what are they called? SIs. They're like counselors, but right a step below. We have a name for that. But anyway, we give them lists. And they're cold calling student after student. Hey, we noticed you registered, but you didn't sign up. Hey, what do you think? And then they're developing a relationship behind the scenes, one-on-one, call after call after call. That's what community colleges should provide, and often universities don't, except Humboldt, is that one-on-one communication. We know that if you can effectively, personally talk to a student, they'll come through. They need a human connection. When they're being rerouted by phones, when they're trying to search the website, forget it. Those are exit points, right? And the more exit points and challenges and hurdles we throw in front of a student to register, the less inclined. Many community college students aren't even that motivated to even go. So if then we create barriers, challenges to register, and it's a pain in the butt. It really is. I think it has to be smoother, easier, and that is something that has to change at the college level.
Thank you for that. And we're trying, we're getting it done.
Yeah.
There's a couple more questions. We do have a teacher that's wondering, are we able to share this presentation with our high school students? Are you okay with that?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I figured. Okay. And you will get a copy of this presentation when the resource toolkit comes out. So we have another question. Okay, Sam, what is your opinion on the role of AVID in high school going to university instead of the community college?
Ooh, come on. I will tell you, and I know we have a house full of counselors. I'm gonna call you out because I cannot tell you anecdotally how many counselors have encouraged their students. They say, "Oh, we're doing this right now with my 14-year-old." The counselor said, "Well, what are your plans?" They're telling an 8th grader, "What are your plans after what do you want to do? Do you want to go to university? Right? Do you want a 4-year degree? Okay, great. Then you're going to take AP, college prep, right?" And then someone's like, "Oh, I don't know. I was thinking about JC." Oh, JC? Oh, then you want bonehead English, bonehead math. You want to go on that track, right? You're not qualified. I mean, there's this crazy tracking. It's a huge problem in the public schools where we literally tell students, like, don't go here, go here. Take these bonehead classes because you're just going to a JC. Like, that's the problem. So counselors, or avid classes need to do a presentation like this, I think it's important to empower students. You just tell them, like, we're gonna do a little research assignment. What's better, community college, CSU, UC, private? I want you to compare all three and decide. And you know what? They're going to start coming to these rational conclusions like, oh, I weighed cost and student, I weighed these things, and it kind of seems like this is a better deal. Well, then why go to this university? Well, man, they got a great football team. I mean, the reality is young people are choosing these schools a lot of times for clout, right? We get caught up in that high school mentality where you go means everything. What you wear means everything. Nike shoes or Spaldings, like, you want to get beat up or not? You know, you've got to be cool, and it's got to be on the outside instead of the inside. That's just a huge population. It's a huge cultural shift that we have to undergo. So avid classes do need to do a better job. And any avid teachers out there or counselors, avid teacher adjacent, let them know. Put a research project together where students have to do this research themselves. They'll come to that conclusion without you. I think that's what good teachers do. Like, we know the direction we're kind of steering them in, but here are the facts. Show me the facts that suggest a university is better for the first 2 years than a community college. What are the facts? I don't think there's a single good argument. Nope, there's none. There might be one.
Hey, Samuel, it's Annette Butler. If I could just jump in here for a moment. One of the things that we do is introduce the students to as many articulated classes as we possibly can. And MSJC has always been here for us every step of the way. We introduce students to MSJC and we do field trips. Hey, here's your local junior college. We let them know where it is, they take classes, they get college credit, and they're already acclimated toward the junior college, and it's not a big step for them to go directly there. So shout out to all of you, MSJC. We've been with you many years. We love you. And personally, I work with 11 other junior colleges, and MSJC is right there all the time. Even if I ask them at the last minute, hey, can you guys come over? They're right there. So we love them. And MSJC does a lot more than many other junior colleges. I'm just being straight up honest with you. Yeah. So we love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know MSJC has been a pioneer in dual enrollment, and that's another way to kind of encourage, you know, some connection. The matriculation is we have I'm teaching, in fact, right now, a high school classroom or a high school dual enrollment class. Part of the problem for me is it's fully online, and I'm guessing a lot of the dual enrollment classes are also fully online. It's kind of hard to make those deep connections with students, but in terms of matriculation, they're in the system, they're put there by their high schools, it makes it easy, and then they can, a lot of them will finish their 2 years before they're even graduated from high school. So then they get that jump really early. So I think between more presentations like this, and between, you know, having really successful dual enrollment type courses, this is great ways to promote community colleges. Really, I think this is the time over the next few years. Watch how our culture shifts. The trades are getting much more attention now than, right, used to be. Not only is it JC versus UC or whatever, it's also trades versus college. And the trades have always been kind of crapped on as like the place where people who don't have brains go. And that's shifting. That's shifting. That's another reason I'm challenged by student loan debt, because I actually do like the argument. If a young person has the skills and then invests $50,000, let's say, in their plumbing business and buys a van and buys other equipment, they went to trade school and they invested in their skills, I think they deserve a little bit of debt relief as well, right? They just took a different route towards their success. And if they're going to invest in trade school and their plumbing truck, let's help them out, right? The student at the university with the $70,000 debt who, you know, majored in whatever, well, we can help them too, but let's help both. Anyway, I just feel like there's some fairness problems there.
Thank you, Sam. We do have one question, Dr. Ramirez.
Hi, Samuel. Thank you so much for the presentation. Hello, everybody. You know, I think one thing that wasn't really addressed or mentioned, and so I don't know if I have a question, but more of a statement, is the families, the parents. How our teachers at the high school level or middle school are communicating to the parents about the future of their own children, the relationships we're building with those parents and those families. we have, I know at Mount San Jacinto College, we have, first generation, primarily Hispanic serving institution. So how are we building relationships with those moms, those dads, those abuelos, those tias, those tios? Because that is what's going to not only, because there is, our Latinx culture does value education very much, but they don't always know how to navigate the system. So they not only need the community college counselors and faculty who are always willing to communicate with families, but they also need to hear it from their high school counselors and teachers that community college is definitely an option. And we're going to connect you with the right people at those spaces that are going to help you feel more confident and comfortable that your child is coming to this institution. So just don't necessarily have a question for you, unless I guess the question is, let's talk about the parents. Let's talk about the family.
No, that's an excellent point, and related to that, and which I didn't bring up, but EOPS and these first gen programs and TRIO and those we have to market to parents, right? They have to recognize that my child will be supported, that we have programs for students like that. You're 100% right. Those programs are hugely supportive of students, particularly first generation college students and their families. I love those graduations for those folks. It's awesome. There's a support system, there's a network, and that's what JC does. That's often different than universities, right? Is we do try to give you a lot of that support, those cohorts, those groups of students all working together. And usually a counselor or faculty member who's started that way too, right? So many of us started at JCs, and we're at JCs because we want to connect to the students that we were when we were younger.
That is great. So we have hopefully, if you don't mind, just a couple more questions. Sure. We have somebody asking, do you ever speak to high school staffs about helping guide students into their college decisions, as well as teaching how to learn and teaching with a caring heart? This would be a great message for high school teachers.
I mean, do I personally? I have definitely done a few. I'm not like an outreach person at the college and they farm me out, but independently I've done some presentations in Avid classes, and I definitely talk up. I think my big presentation to those kids is trying to compare college to merchandise and clothing, and this idea that it has to be Gucci instead of actually functional and wearable. And I like bringing up the Jay-Z quote. Jay-Z never wore jewelry when he got rich. He only did that when he was poor, right? And so when he was just coming up, you got to wear the bling and you got to look cool. Everybody's got to recognize that you're something special. But then once you have it, you don't need to show it off. And to me, there's a lot of showing off that goes on with where students attend, right? You'll see it in high school. I mean, these kids are just bickering who's cool, who's not cool based on where they're going to school. And if they're going to JC, you can see it every time they're saying it. Where are you going to school? Like, it's going JC. I'm like, pick your head up, bro. You're making a smarter decision than all these people. They're going to be $100,000 in debt. They won't be able to buy their Gucci bags. You will, because you've got money in the bank. You saved so much. So just wait on that Gucci.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. We had one question, Dr. Smith. You had a question about the nursing program and the impaction of that. Angela did answer. Part of it is about the clinicals, and part of it's just one of those impactive programs. If you have students that are specifically interested, we do have counselors specifically for our nursing and allied health that can work with those students to prepare them with their GE information. We always recommend too for them to get either their CNA or their EMT certification, because that's one step closer to that degree program. So definitely willing to help with those students. With that, our time is up. We're so sad to see you leave, Sam. This was so amazing. Sure. Please unmute and clap if you can, or at least do the clapping emoji, because this is great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. I'm online. At Ninja Poet, NJA Poet on Insta and TikTok. Feel free to follow me. I don't always post academic stuff, so just be warned. Yeah.
I love your academic stuff, though. That's like my little English nerd part of me, since I'm the math nerd, but then I get to be like, yes, Oxford comma for the win.
I post some of that too.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for spending the day with us. I know it was probably the fastest 4 hours and most exciting 4 hours you've had all week. But I truly do appreciate all of your support, and none of this would have been able to happen without our planning committee. So a huge shout out to Miss Akia Marshall, Mary Lou Dillard, Angela Drum, Elias Escamilla, Albert Jimenez, and Beth Bowles. Not everybody is back in the room, but I hope that they hear this on the recording. This is the reason why K-12 Partnerships is working at MSJC. Without the hard work of them and so many more not listed on this, we would not be able to do what we do. They truly are family to me, and your family to me as well. I've had the opportunity over the last 2 years to get to know almost each and every one of you. And I really value that relationship. I value that partnership, and I value our students. And I'm so excited that we've been able to really strengthen our relationship so that we better serve those students and meet them where they're at. So again, you can either unmute like you did for Sam, or you could just do your high five in the chat. But thank you so much to my planning committee and to all of you for spending the day with us. So with that, I'm going to move this on. If you need to contact us, we do have an email. You can contact us at k12programs@msjc.edu. The beauty about this email address is this is for counselors, teachers, staff, district admin who have questions, and it's monitored by myself and a few other K-12 partnership team members. So it's really important. This is not for students. This is for your individual questions. And of course, all of you, almost all of you, either have my cell phone number or you have my direct line. Oops, I'm gonna mute, yeah. And so if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Every single presenter today has provided us the opportunity to have a copy of their PowerPoint presentation, including our amazing Keynote Sam. So as soon as Angela and I are able to get all of the recordings together and all of the flyers digitally uploaded, we'll upload them into that Google link that you've been using today. And that will be readily available, hopefully by the end of this week. Fingers crossed, lots going on. And with that, no conference would be done without an amazing survey. So we want to thank you for attending, but we also want you to fill out our survey. I just put the link in the chat. Let me know if you need help accessing it. But this is one of the ways that we can ensure that the information that we're providing is beneficial to you. There is information there. There's another section. Just make sure that you're answering it accordingly. Do you want this in person again? Do you want it shorter, longer, wrong time of year? We're really trying to cater to make sure that this professional development experience meets your needs. And as always, if there's topics that you wish you heard about today that you didn't hear about, let us know. And like I said in the beginning, I'm going to do a raffle with the survey. So fill out your survey and then you may win the raffle. And I'm not telling you what you get, but Beth has some really good things in the outside closet. So with that, I want to say thank you. We're going to stop this recording and I can't wait to see you all again. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.